Hello, and welcome to another episode of Thrive Like a Parent podcast. Today, I want to talk to you about how we get into this cycle of resentment and anger towards our partner. And I'm also going to give you solutions of how to break that cycle. Now, if you didn't know, I actually work with couples, and it's actually one of my favorite things to do because when I work with a couple, I see the male individually and I see the female individually because I don't necessarily believe that couples counseling, I don't want to say that it's bad, but I don't know if it works. And I'll tell you why. Please don't hate me. Don't be like F you. But this is just my opinion. I hate giving unpopular opinions. I hate it because I just don't want you to be angry at me. But when you are in an office with someone sitting across from you for, let's say, an hour, and you are bickering about and going back and forth or explaining a fight that you had last week, you are still trying to get your point across, and you are still trying to get your partner to hear you and see you and understand why they have wronged you. I have been to couples counseling, like Jonathan and I went, and I loved our therapist when we were in New Orleans. And I also saw him individually, and Jonathan also saw him individually. And that is why I think that it was supportive. But there's something about the way that I support a couple that just feels like magic to me. And I have worked with couples who are literally on the brink of divorce. Well, this is going to be cheaper than a divorce. So if you can save our marriage, then I'd rather do this than get a divorce. And the reason it works is because of me seeing them individually. I have them completely focus on themselves, but I also know what's going on dynamically. And I know when they're having arguments. Sometimes I'm getting voice messages from both of them, and I'm staying in my lane of helping support one through sensory and emotional regulation and helping support another through sensory and emotional regulation. And the piece of what I see is that by supporting them individually, they begin to focus on their own sensory and emotional regulation. And what happens is they release the codependency, which is built, and how we get into that cycle of anger and resentment. Because oftentimes couples function in such an enmeshed way where we're asking permission to go do things, or we are so hyper focused on supporting our partner because we see that they're not doing well that we forget to take care of ourselves, or we feel like the caregiver burden for our children is all on our backs, or the mental load of doing it all. And then we get frustrated and angry. And then we think, well, I'm doing more than you, or you're not doing enough. Or when you get home from work, you're just sitting on your ass. Or like there's just so many things that build up into resentment and anger with spouses. And it really truly can break you down into disliking the human that you're living with, disliking the partnership that you're in, really being turned off and not wanting to be intimate, maybe even being intimate, but not feeling that truest connection, if you will. And you begin this cycle of tit for tat and I can't say it enough, like such anger and resentment. And the craziest part about this is that majority of the times, most of you are so angry and resentful towards one another because you feel like you're doing so much and it's not being seen, it's not being heard, and you feel like maybe the other one isn't doing it the way that you want them to do it. And we have no control over that. We have to release so much of that enmeshed codependency because you married an individual. You have a partner who is an individual, and you have to be able to wave the white flag and love the person for who they are. But part of that is understanding their sensory system and you understanding your own nervous sensory system. Because if you don't understand their behaviors of like why they're doing what they're doing, you're just going to get pissed off at everything they're doing because they're not doing it potentially the way that you think they should be doing it. or you're in the rut of trying to take care of your partner's needs, but yet you don't recognize that this is something they need to learn for themselves, and they need to understand their own nervous system so that they can support their own nervous system. Because if they never learn to do it, they never will. I can translate this into a child example for you, because I always like to go back and forth, because I really think it helps. Because if you can have these like aha moments of like, these holy shit moments of like, oh my gosh, that's what I'm doing with my kiddos. Holy shit, I'm definitely doing this with my spouse or my partner. Like, it all clicks. So with what we teach, we are giving you tools where you will learn to regulate yourself first and understand your own brain and body. And then these are the same exact tools you will help support your children so that they can learn how to regulate their own brain and body. But we are doing this at a very, very, very young age for our children. Yes, I have parents who are already have teens and all that stuff. Yes, and it is done differently, and the teens take it and they run with it, and they're individuals. But if we stay on top of our children too much, if we always tie their shoes, if we always button their buttons, if we always wipe their asses, they will rely on us to make their beds. They will rely on us to make their food. They will rely on us to do everything for them, including support their regulation. Yes, co-regulation is crucial because your brain and body feeds off of the energy within your house. So let's say you have someone who's really in a funk. We're all going to feel it. That's co-regulation. We're all going to feel it. If you are PMSing and you're snapping, we're all going to feel it because that's co-regulation. But we cannot always choose to regulate our children for them, which means if they're in a tantrum, fixing it. If they're in a meltdown, trying to fix it. If you don't know the difference between a tantrum and a meltdown, I have a course on it. I have a podcast on it. For the sake of this podcast, I'm not going to dive deep into that, but it is important to know the difference. But we don't have to always fix our children. They need to learn how to become independent humans so they could go out in the world and do whatever they want. That is the same exact thing when we have a partner. And I'm going to use a heteronormative relationship because that's just specifically for me what I know. But my mom told me when I was getting into a relationship, she was like, if you start doing things for your partner, you will do them forever. It will never go back. And she was right. When I first met Jonathan, he was doing his own laundry. He was very particular about his laundry. It was pretty like incredible. I was like, wow, this dude this guy cleans up after himself. Like, wow, whoa. I started doing the grocery shopping. I started helping him clean because I was in graduate school and he wasn't working full time. So I was like, well, I got the hours. I can help, and it just ended up going that way. But then what ended up happening backfired is I ended up getting resentful and angry within this cycle through our relationship because once I had kids, I was like, hold on, I've got two bodies to keep alive. Like, I don't have time to do your laundry and fluff your pillows. I mean, I don't fluff pillows, but you know what I mean. Like, I didn't have the time for it. So then I got resentful and angry, but my nurturing side of me told me, you must do this. You should do this because that is what you are supposed to do if you love someone and if you care for someone. And for me, it was as a wife. But how do we break that cycle? How do we break this cycle where so many partnerships find themselves in? And I'm telling you, I get DMs all the time where men and women, I'm not going to single out just women, but I get a lot of DMs that are like, how do I change this? I want to change. I want to do the work, but my partner won't do it with me. Or how do I do this? My partner this or my partner that. And there are a lot of not healthy dynamics out there. And I fully will say that my dynamic was not a healthy one. And you know all about that. And I've told you why I've worked so hard on my dynamic with Carter and really taken my time to make sure that this is where I wanted to spend my energy with Carter. And it is. Now, let's say you were working with me. What I would do is and this is what I want you to do, is I want you to focus on yourself. I want you to become so focused on you, and I want your partner to be focused on themselves, because we are either trying to take care of each other or we are resentful and angry towards each other because we're doing so much or we're trying to take care of each other. It's like one or the other. It's like we're never happy because the partner's either not doing the way we want them to do it, or they're not doing enough, or they're doing it wrong, or like it's just there's always something and we're always blaming them. Well, like I'd like to have a golf day, like wouldn't that be nice? Like, I'd like to go, on a guy's trip. You're going on girls' weekends all the time. That must be nice. Like the low blows, the bitching back and forth, the talking, like it's so miserable to be in a state like that. And I've been there. Like I get you. Like I got you. But when you focus on yourself individually and ask yourself these questions to start emotionally regulating and sensory regulating yourself, you release the codependency of, oh, wow, wait, I matter too. You release the codependency in terms of everyone else mattered but me. And I'm talking the male and female. Whether you believe it or not, most couples care about the other more than themselves. And they don't recognize that they are so interested in pleasing their spouse that they're never pleasing themselves. And so we start with just focusing on ourselves. And that naturally releases the codependency because your brain and body feels how good it feels to start taking care of yourself. Now, one thing in particular that I really, really want to talk about today that can help your partnership is having the hard conversations. So I am going to give you an example. Let's say your partner is in a funk. Something's going on, and a funk probably means they're dysregulated. They have been traveling a lot for work. They have a lot of deadlines. They're just stressed out. They've been going from thing to thing to thing to thing. Some of the things may even include trying to take care of you or do things for the family, but they have just been nonstop. And so they're dysregulated. And so you recognize that. Let's say you recognize, oh boy, they're not doing well. You have two options. Number one is you try to make things easier for them, lighten their load, give them some love and attention, and maybe why don't you go lay down, or giving them some one-on-one time, or like you've tried to do the things that are supportive to be like, okay, if we can just help them and they'll feel better, then then they won't snap as much in the house, or then the whole house won't feel like we're on edge, or like, okay, like let's do this. That's you trying to fix a dysregulated human who may not even recognize they are dysregulated. That is the problem. If they themselves don't know, and you're just trying to fix something that they have no awareness of or the ability to feel it, you're going to be fixing it for the rest of their life, or trying, and you're going to be exhausted trying. And so I want you to send this to your partner. Like, I want you to have your partner hear this. Like, this is literally the number one thing I want to get across within this podcast today. When you choose to try and fix your partner or fix their dysregulation or help them get through a dysregulated state, rather than communicate to them what is going on, like, hey, I see you snapping, like, hey, like, how you feeling over there? It will never end with a good result, because they need to have the awareness that they are dysregulated. So we're not going to fix anymore. We're not going to support. What we are going to do is we're going to have a hard conversation. And where I want you to, or why I want you to send this to your partner, is because it doesn't feel good for your partner to be like, hey, how are you feeling? I need you to know that, like, you've been pretty miserable to be around lately. Like, you've been pretty grumpy and you're snapping, and like, I just need you to know that. I'm sure if you're listening to this right now, you're going to say, there is no way in hell I can tell my partner that without my partner jumping down my throat, snapping at me, and biting off my head. And that right there lies the problem. I utilize my partner as a tool of, oh, wow, you see something I don't see yet. And sometimes We don't recognize that we're dysregulated. 99.9% of the humans who come and start working with me have absolutely no awareness of what it naturally feels like to feel dysregulated. Like you literally don't have the ability to interpret what your body and brain is feeling in order to be like, ding, 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 that's dysregulation. Ding, 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 that is regulation. Like you don't have it. You've never practiced that. You've never leaned into listening to how your brain and body works. And so there has been hard conversations in my relationship where I could choose to be like, fuck you. Like, what do you mean? Like I'm grumpy and pissed off. Well, like, yeah. Or I can be like, wow, I didn't realize that. Okay. All right. I'm going to take a moment to like think about that because my partner's not just telling me that just to be an asshole. At least mine's not. My partner's telling me that to be like, hey, like something's up here. Have you noticed this? And I'll be like, wow. Same with me. I'll be like, hey, oof, I don't really see you smiling a lot lately. Like you're kind of grumpy. How are you doing? It's been a little miserable to be around you lately. Like literally hard words. And I want you to send this to your partner because your partner telling you things like this does not mean you suck. It does not mean you're a terrible parent. It does not mean you're a terrible partner. It means, hey, I'm worried about you. Hey, I need you to check in with yourself. Hey, I need you to take a break. Hey, I need you to go regulate. Hey, I need you to take some time off. Hey, I need you to go take a nap. Like or go play golf or like I don't know, whatever it is, like pickleball, like go walk the dog, like go, have a meal with your friends, like do something that will regulate you. Go to yoga, like what will work for you. But if you're that is like I can't like stress it enough because if you're not doing this work and you don't have support or you're not one of our clients, if you tell your partner something like that right now, they're probably going to bite your head off. But you can look at it completely different if you choose to. And this is something that will help you right now. Be like, wow, my partner told me that. I don't want your partner being like, well, Brooke told me I can tell you you're being a bitch. I didn't say that. Like, you're being such a bitch. Like that's not like, that's not going to work. We want to do it with love and compassion. We want to do it and be like, hey, how are you? Like, if you notice, I say, how are you feeling? Like, that's the first thing. Allow them space to open up. If they're like, fine, nothing, you can be like, well, can we talk for a second? Like, I've noticed that you're slightly grumpy recently and I love you and I'm a little concerned. I think, is anything going on? I know you've been working a lot lately. Like, do you need some time? Like, is there any way I can support you? They really need to support themselves, but asking, how can I support you, is saying, hey, like, I want you to take care of yourself. But saying the hard thing is sometimes necessary in order to point out the dysregulation that we ourselves do not see or feel, especially if you are not doing this work. So take that cue from your partner and be like, wow. Sometimes Carter will say little simple things to me like, hey, how you doing? Like, you doing all right? Every time he says that, I check in with myself and I literally do like a full body scan of head to toe of like, wow, I'm not really making eye contact. Okay, I think I'm a little heightened. All right, this has been a hard week. Or like I'll literally check in with myself because he is so good at seeing where we're at connection wise. I would say he's naturally a little bit more regulated than me. I've told you before, if I don't do the sensory profile because I think I know it so well that like I don't really know what my scores would be. I think I would way overthink it at this point. But I do believe that if I went back in time, I might be diagnosed with sensory processing disorder as a child rather than ADHD. Or I had ADD, not ADHD. I'm not kidding you. And so I don't necessarily see that in Carter. And so I know that he's much more grounded than me. And I have to work really hard on my throttle. I have to work really hard between my gas pedal and my brake to utilize that throttle in between and step on the gas when I need to and slow down when I need to. And sometimes I need a cue from the outside world to be like, hey, yo, what's going on? That doesn't mean he's telling me I suck. That doesn't mean he's telling me I'm wrong. That doesn't mean he's telling me I'm a bad partner. It's bringing awareness to me. And we are feeling so attacked But I do want to reiterate, never, ever are we going to try to attack our partners of like, yo, you're being such a you know what. Stop being such a whatever, whoa, that's passive aggressive. Like, we're not going to do that. We're going to grow up. We're going to have big girl and big boy conversations of, hey, I love you. I want to talk. Like, this energy, we're feeling this energy in the house, right? And that from that, you have two options. You take it in and you process it and you're like, wow, you're right. Wow, okay. Or maybe, wow, I didn't realize that. Okay, I'm going to take some time and think about that and check in with myself. Or like, wow, you know what? You're so right. I've been, burning the candle at both ends and I really need a break. How do you think we could like build this in? Do you think I could take some time this weekend, or maybe could you handle the kids tonight? And then, once I'm feeling better and more regulated, like you could do it tomorrow or the next day, or like, yeah, sure, I can support you in that, because you're trying to recognize what you need, rather than, if you heard from my example in the beginning, it was, I'm going to try and give them some love and give them some alone time and recommend a nap or push them to do this or do that. Like, we're not going to do all those things first. We're going to try to talk to them first, because communication in a partnership is the number one thing that will help support your partnership. Because if you do all those things first that I just said, of like trying to get them to take a nap and giving them some one-on-one time and loving on them, and like, it's kind of like easing them into like, okay, you're not doing well, like, let me try and fix this for you. You are going to have so much resentment and anger because you're pissed off that none of it worked and they're still in a grumpy mood and snapping at everyone in the house. So don't even do that. Don't fix it for them. The same way we're not going to always fix it for our children. We want to teach them the tools of regulation, but we want them to ultimately learn how to regulate themselves. If I was my child, and both of my children, if I was my children's sole regulator, like if they needed me to regulate, they wouldn't be able to regulate at school. They wouldn't be able to regulate it with friends. They wouldn't be able to regulate at camp. They would need me. I want them to be self-sufficient humans who have the tools to regulate themselves. So I am not going to do that for my partner as well. I want my partner to figure out ways in which will support them individually. And I'm telling you, I literally used to do this. Like, I had a human on my hands who really needed a ton of support. I would literally put things in front of him and pick it up and do it. Let's go. That was a whole different level. Jonathan was clinically depressed and it was not good, right? We all know how that went. But I was literally doing that. I was taking care of another human at the age of his 30s. And I was drowning in the process because I was never taking care of myself. And I've been in a relationship where neither one of us are doing well. I've been in a relationship where I finally started taking care of myself and I was doing well, but Jonathan didn't know how to regulate himself or take care of himself. And I've been in a relationship where we both know how to regulate ourselves and we both know how to take care of ourselves and we both know how to verbalize and say the hard things when one of us doesn't recognize, ooh, okay, got it. But that requires the ability to hear hard things and trust that your partner is saying this because your partner loves you. But we have to say it in a kind way. I know I've said that 15 times, but I don't want you to listen to this and be like, well, Dr. B told me I could just be unfiltered and tell you when you suck. Like, that's not really what I'm telling you to do. I'm telling you to help support your partner into like a cue of like, just like a tap on the back of like, ding, hey, just checking in. That's being supportive to a partnership. We're not going to knock them when they're down and be like, you are always such an a-hole when you travel for work. You are always such a blah, blah, blah when you get your period. Like, none of that's going to work. None of that's healthy. The last thing I will say before we close out, because I really hope you send this to your partner. Like, I really hope you like beg your partner to listen to this. So I hope that both of you have heard it so that you can talk through it and have conversations about it and all the good stuff. If your partner is uninterested in being intimate with you for a very long time, it is number one, well, it could be for multiple reasons. Number one, they're completely dysregulated and they don't want to be touched. And if that's the case, partner, you need to tell your partner that. I love you. It is not about you. We are fine. I just can't be touched right now. We're going through a month. Like we're going through a week. Like we're going through a few months. Like this has just been really rough. But I love you. It has nothing to do with you. Number two is you feel wildly disconnected from your partner and you don't want to be intimate with your partner because you are saying things to each other that are making you not want to be intimate with each other. And so you're getting more and more frustrated or more angry with your partner because there's lack of intimacy there. And so maybe the words are getting harsher or meaner. Intimacy, whether you are in a committed relationship or not, there's a lot of conversation around intimacy when, let's say, you're not in a committed relationship. Maybe you're not married. It's, mutual consent. But I do find that when partnerships are married or together for a really long time, sometimes intimacy happens because we feel obligated, because one wants it and the other one is like, oh, or I don't feel connected, and they've asked 15 times, so I'll finally fine tonight. I'll do fine. It should always be consensual. And if it's not, that means that there's something going on in your relationship, whether it is you're dysregulated and you just don't have the bandwidth or you don't feel connected. And I truly, truly believe that no matter how long you've been in a relationship, no matter what your dynamic looks like, it should always be consensual and always be something that's enjoyable between a connected, intimate partnership. And I'm saying that because so often communication, anger, and resentment and the intimacy ends up snowballing and going hand in hand. And so if one of you in the relationship is not interested, check in as to why and have conversations around it. We're not going to shame the other one. We're not going to be pissed off at the other one. We're not going to tell them they're terrible or wrong or bad. This is getting curious. And if one of your partner, like if one of you is wildly dysregulated and that is why you don't want to be intimate, maybe that's a really beautiful time to discuss when you can take some time for yourself to regulate, and then maybe you'll be in the mood. And lastly, once you go down this path and journey of sensory and emotional regulation for yourself as a partnership, what ends up happening is the volcanic eruptions and fights of like, I'm angry, I hate you, I love you. I'm angry, I hate you, we're getting divorced. Oh, wait, I love you. Like that butterfly effect of like, ooh, I have the butterflies again. Yay, we feel connected. And like, nope, I hate you. Like, whoop, yay, the butterflies are back. Like glimpses of the butterflies. Like that is an unhealthy dynamic pattern for a relationship. And when you decrease the codependency, sometimes you're left with, we're just kind of, we're doing well. We're just kind of like gliding along. But like, where's the connection? Like if we're just, doing really well, that's where the really cool stuff happens, where you can start to recognize what your partner actually is doing for you because you have released all the resentment and anger from what they're not doing, because you have started giving it to yourself and your partner has started giving it to themselves. And so you are no longer responsible for that. You have taken a heck of a lot off your shoulders. And so now you can start to notice when things do feel good. Now you can start to notice when your partner does go out of their way, even if it's the smallest thing. Last night, I just got back, dropped the kiddos off, and I don't know when this podcast will drop, but I just got back from dropping off the kids at camp. And then I went and drove to New Orleans to spend some time with my grandfather, who is not doing well at all. And I literally, I flew in to Mississippi, went to Target, did all the errands, got the kids packed, schlepped 3 50-pound bags. I did this all on my own, Was in the hotel, got them all settled. I was exhausted, woke up at like 5:30 in the morning, worrying about my grandfather and worrying about all the labels and all the things for the kids, got the kids off. We drove, it was an hour to get them to camp. Said goodbye to them. That was emotional. Got to hug some of my best friends who also bring their kids there. Hopped in the car. I flew to Mississippi. Then I drove to New Orleans so that I could see my grandfather. And then I took a flight from New Orleans and flew out. And I was here back in Austin at like 8 o'clock at night. And I literally felt like I had like a migraine from crying all day. And it was a very emotional day all around. And it was like 10 o'clock at night. And I'm literally in my robe getting all of my vitamins together. Carter calls and we're talking on the phone, and I'm, drinking and doing my pills and vitamins as we're talking and just telling him about the day. And literally as I'm on the phone with Carter, I hear the door opening, and I thought I heard his voice, and in walks Carter. And he was like, I just came to give you a hug. He couldn't stay, but he literally just came over to give me a hug. And those are the things within a relationship that we want to notice. We want to notice when our partner flies back early to make sure that, Father's Day is done right with all the family. We want to make sure that we notice when you're not feeling well and you go lay down. We want to notice how our partner doesn't complain and picks up the pieces and is like, all right, I got the kids the rest of the afternoon. You lay down, you're not feeling well. Like, we want to notice those things. But when we are resentful and angry towards our partner and we are not aligned in supporting ourselves individually, we don't notice when our partners do support us because we're so angry and frustrated with them for what they're not doing or for what they are doing and the way that they are doing it. And so in order to break that cycle of anger and resentment, it needs to start with individualized work of you recognizing how to regulate your nervous system and your partner learning how to recognize and take care of their own nervous system. And then being able to have the hard conversations when necessary without guilt, blame, shame, curse words, like all the things, name calling, like all of that. We can utilize these hard conversations as data, collecting data in terms of, wow, okay, I need to listen in. And again, you have to release that trigger of you're a bad human, you're a bad person, you suck, you're not doing enough. Your partner's telling you this because they want to help and support you. Or be like, hey, like, ding, ding, tap on the shoulder. So please share this with your partner. Please have a conversation with your partner after you listen to this and decide as a couple that you are okay and willing to have the hard conversations. And if you first need to focus on your own self for a few weeks, few months of like, okay, you know what? I think we need a timeout. Like, we're going to still live in the same home, but we're not doing well. I'm going to focus on me. I want you to focus on you. And I'm going to release taking care of you, and you're going to release taking care of me. Start there and then have the hard conversations, because you need to be in a good place to have the hard conversations. Can't be right off the bat. Most importantly, I want you to know this is possible. I want you to know that when I first started doing this work, there was such a fear for me, a projected fear, that because I first started working only with women, because moms could relate to me, because I was a mom and like all the things. So I first only started working with women. And there was such a fear that I was projecting that after I helped women, particularly mothers, understand how to regulate their nervous system, they would want to leave their spouse, divorce their spouse, or families would split apart. And the reason I had that projected fear was because that's what happened to me. And I was so incredibly careful to own that projection for myself, own that fear for myself, and not allow it to seep into all of the women's progress and their own journeys. I was so careful with my words because I wanted them to have their own path and own journey. And just because my marriage did not do well doesn't mean everyone else's won't. And the absolute craziest thing happened. So many partnerships have strengthened, gotten better tenfold by doing this work, whether it is just the female or just the male. And it was one of the biggest shockers to me when I switched from pediatrics to parents was, besides the fact that a lot of individuals who do the program lose weight, which this has nothing to do with weight loss, that was the second shocker to me. But your relationship can rise, and that fear and projected fear is totally gone now, because I have literally watched relationships go from me literally thinking to myself, oh boy, like, ooh, they might, they might not make it. Wow. To literally when they write a testimonial, a review, they're like, the biggest thing that I got out of this was that my marriage is better than ever. And I did not expect that. The human who did the program or who worked with us didn't expect that. And now I expect it because I've been doing this for so many years now. But in the beginning, I had this projected fear. But sensory and emotional regulation will help you release a lot of the codependency and allow you to finally accept the human in front of you, allow you to take full responsibility for yourself, your own regulation, and then to be able to support each other because you have the capacity to support each other and communicate in a really healthy way, and maybe have some awesome intimate moments while you're at it. So there you have it. I really hope you listen to this and send it to your partner, because you can shift, dynamics can change. And that fear that I had, that projected fear that I had, I thought about it so much because I was like, I am not in the business of breaking up families. Like, that is not teaching people how to regulate their nervous system. That is not my goal. Like, that, it felt icky to me. So, which is why it was such a fear of mine. And once we started doing this over and over and over, time and time again, partnerships have strengthened. Yes, there are a few who have recognized, okay, we need to separate. And I'm saying, like, literally on one hand. And we've done this with hundreds and hundreds of men and women. But learning this material, learning to regulate yourself, and then having hard conversations with your spouse and accepting those hard conversations can make the difference. I believe in you, and I believe in your partnership. So you go believe in it too. And until next time, XOXO, Dr. V.